Hi there, and thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Jacqueline. I'm the Community Health and Wellness Educator here at North Kansas City Hospital and Veritas Health. Today, I have the pleasure of reintroducing um, Britta Hess and Michaela Taylor. They're doctors of physical therapy, and we are actually continuing part two of understanding chronic pain and chronic fatigue. So, for those who hadn't or that missed our part one of this series, feel free to check out our YouTube channel under North Kansas City Hospital to get in on the part one of this series. So thank you all again for joining us today. And I'm going to hand it over to Britta and Michaela. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining us.
Okay, so like Jacqueline said, I'm Britta, this is Michaela. And we're talking about part two today. So about 2 weeks ago, we talked a little bit about chronic pain and fatigue, just understanding what they are and kind of what the signs and the symptoms associated with them are. But we want to talk a lot more today about management strategies. So before we get into that, I'm going to do just a quick review and then we'll jump into some management. Okay, so when we're looking at kind of the definitions of chronic pain and chronic fatigue, chronic pain is when the pain exceeds what is considered normal for a particular injury or illness. So past like that normal timeline, if you're still having pain, a lot of the tissues may have healed in your body, but your body's still very sensitive to certain stimuli. So that's when we say we have this nervous system hypersensitivity. So things that really are not causing you any harm or any damage are still very, very painful. Then when we look at chronic fatigue, that's when our fatigue levels are more than what would be considered normal for whatever the certain condition it's associated with. So it affects all aspects of your daily life. It's different from just being tired. It's not something that can always be improved with sleep. It's like this ongoing fatigue that affects every day-to-day function. Okay. So chronic pain and chronic fatigue, they're not always diagnosed by a healthcare professional. So if you kind of were listening to us talk last time and you think, oh, that might be something I'm struggling with, that it may be true. It may be, it may not be, but it's not always a diagnosed condition. They can accompany a lot of other conditions, but they don't always have to. They can occur together, so you can have both chronic pain and fatigue or separately, so just one or the other. But the key point is they're both manageable. So there's not necessarily a cure to either one of these, but there's so many management strategies that can help you improve your overall quality of life and still live a very full and active life, even if this is something that you're struggling with. Okay, so like we said, living with these conditions is possible. It's very manageable. So there's a lot of like famous people, well-known actors, actresses who live with chronic conditions every day. So some of our examples were Morgan Freeman. He's diagnosed with fibromyalgia. Still has a very successful life and a very successful career, even though he has a chronic condition. Selena Gomez is another example we came up with. She has a diagnosis of lupus, so an autoimmune disease. But she, deals with, I'm sure, chronic pain and fatigue both, but still, again, has a very, very successful life, a very full life. So it's possible to live with a lot of these things. Your diagnosis does not define you. So even if this is something that you're dealing with, there's still so many other things that you can do to manage this. However, sometimes you have to make modifications to kind of your day-to-day stuff. So you can still, you can still hold a job, you can still spend time with your family, you can still travel, do your different hobbies, participate in exercise. All of these different things are still possible, but sometimes we just kind of have to find a way to manage these. So that's what we're really, really diving into today, is all of these different strategies to help you still be successful.
We introduced this boom bust cycle in part one of our presentation, so we will revisit that. Pain and fatigue can be vicious cycles. And for example, on days where your fatigue is worsened, you cancel all of your commitments, you fall behind on some of your household chores, and you spend the day resting at home. After a day or two of rest, you start to feel better and you have more energy, and now you try to make up for all of the days where you were not able to get as much done. So now you run all of your errands, you finish your chores, you get a workout in. But this can lead to a crash from overdoing it, leading to increased levels of pain and fatigue. And now you have to spend the next few days resting again. So the goal here is that eventually you are hovering closer to that solid blue line and avoiding the extremes of overdoing it or underdoing it. So next, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into some treatment and management strategies to help achieve this. The key here is that there often isn't one single treatment technique that is best or better than others. And often management approaches include several, if not all of these options listed, and they're individual from person to person. So what works for one may not work for the other person. And there may be periods of trial and error. So it's important to talk to your healthcare provider and find out what works best for you and your condition. But these are some of the things that we're going to touch on today, including education, an interdisciplinary healthcare team, a nutritious diet, regular exercise and activity modification. Sometimes medication can be useful, sleep hygiene, certain modalities, social support, relaxation or meditation, mental health therapy, and goal setting. So, when it comes to chronic conditions, knowledge is power. Research shows that pain education, or learning about some of the physiological causes and mechanisms of pain itself, can help to lower the frequency, the intensity, and the severity of pain. Another term for this is owning your pain. So in other words, the better you understand it, the better you can control it. It is very important to use reliable sources. It's good to do your own research and understand what's going on, but be careful about what you read online, of course. Remember, there's a lot of anecdotal stories and recommendations on the internet. So that means that although a certain treatment may have worked really well for one person, there might not be sufficient evidence or objective data to back up the effectiveness of it. So like I said, it can be very helpful to do your own research, but remember that ultimately any treatment or strategy will be unique to you. And the bottom line is, if you feel like you need help managing a chronic condition, talk to your doctor and ask about getting referral to an appropriate healthcare provider who can help you understand and manage your condition. So that takes us into the importance of an interdisciplinary healthcare team, which is very important in the treatment of chronic pain. So this may include your primary care provider, or a specialist like pain management, rheumatology, neurology if necessary. A registered dietitian can be very helpful to help find a diet that suits you. Physical therapy, occupational and speech therapy can also be very helpful, as well as a counselor or a therapist. And these are just to name a few. There's a lot of other options out there, and having everybody collaborate together can be very, very useful. Diet is also very important. You may have heard the phrase, food is fuel, meaning that the food you eat should be providing sufficient nutrients and energy to your body and your brain. So that being said, there are certain foods that have been linked to increased levels of inflammation, which may exacerbate your symptoms. Some foods, especially those high in sugar or artificial sugar, can lead to a short-term surge in energy and then can lead to a rapid crash, while other foods are better at helping to maintain and stabilize your energy throughout the day. So like I mentioned earlier, referral to a registered dietitian can be really helpful to kind of plan some healthy meals.
Okay, the next one is exercise. So exercise is huge and so important in managing both of these conditions, both chronic pain and chronic fatigue. So exercise, regular exercise can help decrease muscle stiffness and tightness. So your muscles want to move. Your bodies are made to move. So anytime that you're able to exercise, it makes them feel better. You improve blood flow throughout your whole entire body. So all your muscles need blood and oxygen to be happy and to do their job. It improves your neural mobility. So what that means, you can have tightness in your nervous system, just like you can have tightness in your muscles. But nerves respond a lot differently than muscles. They like to move. They don't necessarily like to stretch all the time like we do for a tight or sore muscle. They like more of that normal, regular exercise. That's what helps nerves feel better. Exercise releases endorphins and serotonin. So those are both like the feel-good chemicals in our body that kind of give you that little boost of energy, or that little boost of decreased pain. It feels good. It can improve your overall mood. It improves your sleep, and exercise helps to decrease stress levels. So there's so many things that it benefits. Exercise is huge. It's not just about weight loss. That's oftentimes what we think about when we think about exercise and trying to make your body healthy. But there's so many other things that it helps with as well. So when we look kind of at the research with exercise, the American College of Sports Medicine, they kind of are what dictate this into a lot of the research. So they recommend that adults exercise anywhere from a moderate intensity. It doesn't have to be a crazy intense exercise, just something to kind of get your blood flowing and your heart pumping and things like that. 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. So that seems crazy daunting at first. We're going to break that down a little bit because I know a lot of people, that's not what you want to try and jump into, and you need to take it slow. And then they also recommend strength training. So, there's not necessarily maybe one exercise that's better than the others. We want a whole well-rounded approach with getting your blood flowing, getting some oxygen to your body, but then also working your muscles to get them stronger as well. So when you jump into an exercise routine, you have to make sure that you're safe. This is something, the biggest one we always say is talk to your doctor before you start. So you want to make sure whatever exercise routine you're thinking about doing, we want it to be safe for you. And in order to know that, you need to go into your doctor and have them check everything out and make sure that it's a safe program. So ask for help. Jumping into this can be scary and kind of hard. So talk to, physical therapists. That's what we're here for. That's what personal trainers are here for. Their experience, they want to help you. Don't be afraid to ask them. That's their job. That's literally what we do every day is find people, help them find safe ways to exercise that feels good and doesn't hurt. Start small. So don't try and take on like a huge amount at the beginning. That 30 minutes, 5 days a week seems crazy at first, but we wouldn't tell anybody to start that. You have to start in really, really small increments and kind of work your way up. Set some goals. So find some goals that are going to challenge you, but they're also realistic and achievable. And sometimes you have to break those goals down a little bit too, and not just look at the big picture, but kind of look at the day to day. How can we work a little bit at a time to start to achieve these really big goals in the long run? And then lastly, listen to your body. So don't overdo it. Don't get stuck back in that boom and bust pain cycle that Michaela was talking about. We have to listen to our body. It's trying to tell us something for a reason. We have to pay attention to it. And on days where we feel a little better, try not to do so much that we're going to crash and burn the next day. But at the same time, on days where you don't feel really good, we have to do something still. So it's kind of about this little check and balance back and forth. So I think one of the most common mistakes for people, especially people with these diagnoses of chronic pain and fatigue, is overdoing it. So they jump in too crazy. So if, just for an example too, if you're a fairly sedentary person and you're home all the time, even walking 10 or 15 minutes can be something really huge for your body, something that you're not used to. So instead of immediately trying to jump into something like that, sometimes 2 or 3 or 4 minutes is enough exercise, enough of a walk for the day. And that sounds really tiny at the beginning, but that can be a good place to start. And you have to do that for several days as well. So if you try and do 3 or 4 minutes and then 5 or 6 minutes and then 7 or 8 minutes, we still fall into that boom and bust cycle. When instead, if you do 3 or 4 minutes and consistently do that for 4 or 5 days, that's when maybe it's time to bump it up another 30 seconds to a minute. So it's that starting small and getting gradually increasing is huge in this for exercise too. So lastly, a lot of people don't like to exercise, but there's a lot of ways we can still enjoy it. So first of all, make it fun. You have to find an activity that you really, really enjoy doing. So if you hate running, don't take up running. If you're scared of water, don't take up swimming. You've got to find something that you're really going to truly enjoy. And along with that, exercise at the time of the day when you feel the best. So again, if you're a morning person and you feel your best in the morning, maybe that's a good time to exercise. If you're like me and you don't want to get out of bed in the morning, then you may be better off doing it towards the end of the day. Make it a social activity and invite friends or family or whoever else is around you to participate with you. So you don't necessarily have to exercise at the gym. You can do exercise at home. You can do exercise at your community center. You can do it with people. You can do it by yourself if you're more, if that's your stress relief for the day. You can do water exercise. There's so many things that you can do. So try a group class or something new. We encourage a lot of people to try that too. There's tons of free workout videos on YouTube. There's all kinds of different workout apps that you can look up now. You can try something like chair yoga. There's Tai Chi. There's a lot of strengthening workouts. And a lot of these, if you find them online too, there's either little or no equipment involved. So you can kind of try it out on your own at home. And if you like it, then maybe you can get more into it. Celebrate your little victories again. So set those goals at the beginning, like we talked about, and then you have to celebrate when you hit them. It's important. It's, it makes you feel good. It gives you something to keep working towards. Don't get discouraged if the day doesn't go how you planned. You can always get back on track tomorrow. So consistency is key when it comes to exercise, but nobody's perfect at it. We're never going to perfectly have a week where we exercise as much as we want to, and that's okay. We just have to be consistent about it and little by little continue to stay on track so that it can become a long-term goal. It takes time to build a habit, so don't stress out if the things don't go exactly how you want them to at first.
That brings us to our next point, which is activity modification. So like Britta mentioned, having good days and bad days are normal, and it's important to know how to modify the activities based on both your good and bad days so you don't fall into that boom bust cycle. So a way of doing that is by breaking up larger tasks into smaller and more manageable steps. An example for that is planning ahead for multiple laundry days instead of doing them all in one day. Or maybe you wash your clothes in the morning, you fold them in the afternoon, and then you put them away later in the day. So by breaking up a large task into smaller ones, it can help to avoid increasing flare-ups of both pain and fatigue. It's also really important to conserve your energy if needed. So maybe there are certain activities that you can do in seated versus standing, like for example, using a shower chair to sit while you're showering instead of standing there. Or maybe you can cook or fold laundry with a stool to help avoid some increased pain and having to stand for several minutes. Another option is using a wagon to pull your groceries throughout the parking lot instead of having to carry the heavy bags. The big thing too is do not be afraid to ask for help from your family members and friends who are willing, and delegate tasks as you need to. There is nothing wrong with asking for help. Mental health matters as well. So obviously living with chronic pain and fatigue can be very stressful, and it is important to find a way to manage the stress rather than just to think you'll be able to make it disappear. So therapy is a great resource, and it may be covered fully or partially by insurance. There's also some great resources for either in-person or virtual counseling sessions. So it really is as convenient as possible to talk to a mental health professional. You do not have to be going through a crisis or have a diagnosed mental health condition to benefit from talking to a therapist. They are great resources to help understand and manage your daily thoughts, feelings, and stressors.
Okay, so with that as well, there's a lot of other stress management strategies also. So first and foremost, like we've said a couple times now, have a good healthcare team ready to support you. So that includes doctors, psychologists, therapists, counselors, pain management, PT, OT, speech therapy, all those different healthcare disciplines. And don't be afraid to ask them for help. Again, that's their job. That's what they get paid to do every day. So it's okay to use them as a resource. Social support is very important. So that can be from your family, your friends, coworkers, people at your gym, your trainers, your fitness instructors. There's so many different ways that we can have a little bit of that social support during the day as well. Relaxation and meditation can be very helpful for managing stress. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. So journaling, some people really enjoy journaling, some people don't. That's okay. There's also, spirituality, diaphragmatic breathing, and box breathing. We talked about that a little bit last time. Just an exercise to kind of calm your body, calm your mind, calm your thoughts. And then sleep hygiene. Sleep is really important in managing stress as well. And balancing between either too much or too little sleep. So we're going to go a little bit more into detail on that because that can be something that a lot of people with these chronic conditions struggle with as well. So when we say sleep hygiene, again, kind of first and foremost, if this is something you really struggle with, talk to your doctor. These are not necessarily things that we say are guaranteed to make your sleep perfect, but they can really, really be helpful in getting a good night's sleep too. So first of all, set a bedtime and set a wake time. So get your body into a routine. You're trying to train yourself, just like you would for any other habit. You're trying to kind of get yourself into this routine. So you want to set a bedtime, set a wake time, and keep them fairly consistent throughout the week if you can. Stay off your phone, your computer, your TV before bed. Try to eliminate that screen time before you go to bed. And instead do something like relaxing or meditate, kind of try and calm your mind a little bit before you go to bed as well. You obviously want to reduce your fluid intake, especially any caffeine or alcohol for several hours before you go to bed if possible, to limit the amount of times you might have to be up in the middle of the night. Darken and cool the bedroom. Those have both been shown to help us sleep. Remove any kids or pets from your bed. That can be a hard one, but that can really limit your quality of sleep during the night as well. Try to eliminate those daytime naps so that your body is actually tired when you go to bed. Try to get some regular exercise during the day as well. Park your ideas. That's probably my favorite in this whole list. So what that means is if you are a person who goes to bed and you're thinking constantly about, who you have to call tomorrow, what you need to add to your grocery list, all your chores for the day, write those down. So get a little notepad and a pen beside your bed and just write down all the things that you're thinking about before you go to sleep so that your mind's not constantly trying to think about that all night long and you're not worried that you're going to forget something the next day. And then the last one is stay in bed. So when you set that bedtime and wake time, whatever the hours are in between those two, stay in bed. Even if you can't fall asleep, just lay there, relax, think, meditate, do what you need to do. But you're trying to get your body into this routine. So if every time you lay in bed and you feel like you can't fall asleep, you get up, your body knows that's what you're going to do. So instead, we're trying to really kind of get yourself in the habit of staying in bed between the time you go to bed and the time you're supposed to get up in the morning so that your body becomes more accustomed to that routine. And again, those are suggestions. They're really good places to start. But if it's something you still really struggle with, talk to your doctor and see if maybe they could do a sleep study, or maybe you can talk to somebody else about any other options that there might be. Okay, next we're going to talk a little bit about goal setting. So it's so important to set goals. We have to have something that you're working towards. Otherwise nobody has any reason to work on any of this. You've got to have a reason to want to keep doing it. Whether that's just your quality of life in general, whether that's a certain activity or hobby you want to do, whether it's being there for your family, whatever your goal is, we need something to be working towards. So when you set those goals, they need to be challenging enough to get you to do something, but achievable. And sometimes that's where we break those goals down into little smaller sections too. So I always use the goal. It's a funny goal for anybody thinking about this, but running a marathon, anybody who does a marathon run, you have to be able to run half a marathon before that. Well, before that, you have to be able to run a 5K. Well, before a 5K, you have to run a mile. And before you run a mile, you have to walk a mile. So there's all these little steps that you can break it down into. The same thing goes with any of your day-to-day goals. We need to break it down into little steps and then celebrate when we hit those steps too. So we've got to have that little help along the way too in setting all these goals. And if that's something you struggle with, that can be where we go back to the healthcare team as well. Talk to your doctor if it's a health goal. If it's a movement goal, maybe you talk to your physical therapist or your personal trainer. If it's more of a mental health or a stress goal, talk to the therapist or the counselor. There's so many people who can help you set these goals too, if it seems like something really overwhelming for you to do by yourself. So in conclusion, like we've said all along, living with chronic pain and fatigue is so possible. It does not have to define you. It does not take over your personality. There are a lot of ways that you can manage this. So your happiness, your success, your joy, all of your day-to-day emotions do not have to be diminished due to this chronic condition. Your doctors, your therapist, all that entire healthcare team wants to help you live the best life that you can. So talk to your doctor, talk to all of these healthcare members, try and get yourself a really solid team so that you can take over and you can control your life rather than having to go the other way around. Okay, and then with that, if there's any questions, feel free to shout them out or you can put them in the chat box too if that's easier.
And if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to us. You can either email our team. I do see one Q&A. Ladies, would you mind giving Lori any recommendations for a physician who deals with CFS? Do you have any recommendations? And Lori, you can always reach out to us with this as well.
I think that it's a little tough to recommend. I don't know your insurance and who may be in network or out of network, but I think your primary care doctor would probably be the best place to start. And see if you need a referral, then they would be able to direct you to the right place.
Well, thank you, ladies. And yes, feel free to reach out to us. You can either email me, it's Jacqueline Sloan, JACLYNN .SLOAN @nkch.org. And if you're interested in part 1 of this series, please feel free to check out the YouTube channel. It's been posted there as well. And if you missed today, I'll be emailing out the link to this health talk as well. And ladies, thank you so much for joining us today and providing your expertise to our community. It's not every day we get to hear from our experts. So we really do appreciate you coming on and talking about chronic fatigue and chronic pain.
Of course, don't hesitate to reach out to us too. You can get in touch with Jacqueline and she can easily get in touch with us too if there's any other questions that come up.
Thank you, ladies.